Ladies and gentlemen, bonjour mesdames et messieurs, bienvenue à la réunion du Conseil pour le 28 février 2018. Welcome to Ottawa City Council for February 28th, 2018. For those who are able to, please rise for a moment of personal reflection and remain standing for the singing of our national anthem. You could remain standing, and I'll ask Councillor Deans to introduce our very special guests who are here from Gloucester Southgate to sing our national anthem.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce the St. Marguerite Douville Catholic School Junior Choir, directed by Ms. Joanne Morris. St. Marguerite Douville Catholic School is located in the Greenboro neighborhood and has had a school choir since opening their doors 26 years ago. The junior choir is composed of students in grades 4, 5, and 6 and has a strong commitment to our community. At Christmas, the children very much enjoy singing for the residents at the Windsor Park Manor and the Hunt Club Manor. Every school year, the choir members dedicate themselves in practicing in order to perform for staff, students, and parents at the St. Marguerite Douville's Christmas celebration and during the school's Education Week in the spring. Not only does this choir sing, but over the last couple of years, they have incorporated dance into their performances, presenting at the Ottawa Catholic School Board Dance Showcase and at the school's talent show. This morning, there will also be some choir members performing the national anthem in sign language. One of their very own grade 6 student, Iona Marinescu, who is here today, is a member of the Ottawa Catholic School Board Choir. The Ottawa Catholic School Board Choir sings for veterans on Remembrance Day. I know that the students are delighted to be here today to sing our national anthem. So please join me in welcoming the St. Marguerite Douville Catholic School Choir as today's Voices of Council.
Well, that was terrific. Thank you. I think that was the first time we'd had sign language interpretation of the national anthem. So you did an excellent job, folks from St. Marguerite. Merci beaucoup pour votre participation ce matin.
Thank you so much for your participation this morning.
Back to the podium for this council's Mayor's City Builder Award presentation. Osman, if you'd come forward. J'invite maintenant Osman à monter.
It's an honor to invite Osman Nafki to the podium for this council's City Builder Award presentation.
PN Ward Councillor Michael Kakish to join us for the celebration. Osman's councillor, and also invite Councillor Mark Taylor to join us. Osman worked with Councillor Taylor on the Youth in the Hall event, along with a number of other councillors. I think Councillor Taylor is coming. I'm pleased to extend a warm welcome to the family, friends, and colleagues of Osman Naqvi who are here with us today. Osman is being honored today for his countless hours of volunteering and for his participation in numerous community building initiatives here in the City of Ottawa. Nous rendons hommage à Osman aujourd'hui.
Osmond is being honored today for his countless hours of volunteering and for his participation in numerous community-building initiatives in Ottawa.
He's a natural leader, a social entrepreneur, and a strong youth empowerment advocate. Osmond est un leader naturel and
He's a natural leader, social entrepreneur, and a strong youth empowerment advocate.
Caring and Sharing Exchange, the Kiwanis Club of Barrhaven, and he's co-founder of the Youth Heroes initiatives that empowers local youth to create change in their communities. This is a youth-led organization that works with all levels of government to provide leadership and educational programming to improve opportunities for at-risk youth. Osmond has been involved with many local organizations, including Carty House, a transition home for refugee women, the Canadian Hearing Society, the Canadian Toy Testing Council, and UNICEF. He was recognized as an everyday hero in 2017 through the United Way's ongoing Community Builder Award. His efforts to make our city great for everyone were acknowledged earlier this year when he was recognized by the United Way as one of 5 people who made Ottawa better in 2017. He recently completed a Master's of Management degree from the School of Business at York University, and throughout his undergrad and graduate school years, he served on a number of boards and became the founder of various charitable organizations. He held positions ranging from marketing and strategic planner to a youth and child worker at the Boys and Girls Club of Ottawa to working for the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. His enthusiasm and dedication to helping others has given him the experience to undertake several executive and director positions with various community organizations. Osmond aspires to increase his service to the community as in the process of developing a social enterprise that works to bring hygiene products to areas in need. He's inspired by seeing how people can effectively pull resources together for a good cause. He continues to be motivated by positive change his efforts can create at the local and international levels. Sa source d'inspiration, la capacité.
He's inspired by seeing how people can effectively pull resources together for a good cause.
Thank Osmond for his many contributions to the community and the entire city. And it's my pleasure to present you on behalf of Councillor Kakish and Councillor Taylor, the Mayor's City Builder Award. Keep up the great work. Congratulations. Well done.
I guess I should start off with a quote, not a philosophical one, but when I volunteered many years ago at a community park cleanup, I actually met a 10-year-old kid. And at that park cleanup, I asked him, "Why do you volunteer?" Since it was surprising to see a 10-year-old child. And he turned to me and said, "I like to see people smile." So obviously, ironically enough, I smiled in that moment. And I thought that really encompassed why I like to volunteer as well. So now that that quote is shared, I have to go down the slippery slope of naming names and thanking people. I'd like to thank Lena Boyd for putting my name forward. She was a director with Youth Heroes and worked wonderful and many hours on the organization. I then have to turn to His Worship Mayor Jim Watson, who's done an incredible job supporting the many organizations that I've been a part of. Additionally, Deputy Mayor Taylor, who's been nothing less than a mentor and part-time superhero for the City of Ottawa. And I guess you could quote me on that. He's really everywhere and puts his heart into every initiative an individual puts forward. As for Councillor Kakish, he's been my councillor, and I've seen the Nepean grow exponentially under his watch. We also started Kiwanis Club of Barrhaven together, and it's incredible to see where he's taken that as well. On that note, I would like to thank each and every one of City Council members for creating an environment where people could grow and flourish in the City of Ottawa. Thank you again for the award. Thank you, Superhero.
Since November 2015, the Ottawa Public Library and Library and Archives Canada have been working together to realize a joint facility on behalf of the residents of the National Capital Region. This is a unique opportunity to join forces and create a landmark civic and national institution. And I was very pleased yesterday when the Government of Canada announced that it will be contributing $73.3 million for this great city building project. I want to thank Minister Mélanie Joly, who I spoke with last night, the Minister of Canadian Heritage, Minister Catherine McKenna, who worked tirelessly, and this morning at a breakfast with Minister Morneau, Minister Morneau indicated that she was lobbying him 100 times over the course of the last couple of weeks, as well as Minister Morneau, and members of the National Capital Government Caucus for their advocacy and commitment to securing these funds. Je remercie les ministres
I'd like to thank Minister Mélanie Joly and Catherine McKenna for their leadership in this file, as well as the Finance Minister, Mr. Bill Morneau, and their colleagues from the National Capital Region Caucus for their dedicated work that led to this investment.
between the city, OPL, and LAC is good value for money and provides significant opportunities for cost savings in the project. The facility will be situated at a prime national location near LRT's Pimisi Station at LeBreton Flats. The number of OPL users is expected to grow by more than 125%. And thanks to the leadership and persistence and patience of Councillor Tim Tierney and his work with the Ottawa Public Library and his predecessor, Jan Harder, who started this process, his team is currently evaluating outstanding proposals from some of the most respected architecture firms in the world. The Ottawa Central Library will be a purpose-built, fully accessible and modern facility. There will be a collaborative programming, including shared exhibition, gallery, and a genealogy center. Staff have completed the request for qualification for design services. Submissions have drawn international interest from prominent architecture firms, and 5 respondents from the RFQ will be selected to proceed to the RFP, or request for proposal stage. The announcement of the firms selected through the RFQ process will be announced shortly. Also in the coming weeks, a report will be coming forward to City Council to confirm municipal project funding. I am very excited to see this project finally moving forward. J'ai hâte de prendre les prochaines étapes pour réaliser.
I'm anxious to start the next steps for this project that will be to the great benefit of our residents.
I was keeping an eye on the budget debate last night, and I had the honor of being in the Speaker's Gallery when the budget was tabled. And again, I want to thank those ministers and thank Chair Tierney and members of the Ottawa Public Library Board. This was a very good piece of news for the City of Ottawa and for residents who will be the benefactors of this beautiful new library overlooking LeBreton Flats. So, merci beaucoup, Councillor Tierney. Roll call, please.
Conseiller Manette.
Présent.
Councillor Middick.
Here.
Councillor Harder.
Here.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Present.
Councillor El Shantiri.
Present.
Councillor Kadri.
Present.
Councillor Taylor.
Here.
Councillor Shirelli.
Here.
Councillor Egli.
Here.
Councillor Deems.
Here.
Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Conseiller Fleury.
Si.
Councillor Nussbaum.
Here.
Councillor McKenney.
Present.
Councillor Leeper.
Here.
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Councillor Chernyshenko.
Présent.
Conseiller Cloutier.
Présent.
Conseiller Blais. Councillor Derouse.
Here.
Councillor Moffat.
Here.
Councillor Kakish.
Present.
Councillor Hubley.
Here.
Mayor Watson.
Ici.
Le quorum est tient, Monsieur le Maire.
You have quorum.
Process verbal, confirmation of minutes for the meeting of February 14th, le 14 février 2018. Carried. Declarations of interest, including those originally rising from prior meetings, déclaration de conflit d'intérêt. None. Communications as printed, no regrets filed to date. Motion to introduce reports, motion portant présentation de rapport, conseiller Blais, s'il vous plaît.
Councillor Blais.
Clerk and Solicitor's Office entitled Status Update Council Inquiries and Motions for the period ending February 23, 2018. Community and Protective Services Committee Report 29, Environment and Climate Protection Committee Report 18, Planning Committee Report 58, and the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor's Office entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to the Planning Act Explanation Requirements at the City Council meeting of February 14, 2018 be received and considered, and that pursuant to subsections 35.5 and 35.6 of Procedure Bylaw 2016-377, Council receive and consider Planning Committee Report 59, and that the petition listed on the agenda with respect to sidewalk between 435 and 395 Terminal Avenue be received.
On the motion, adopté, carried. Report, City Clerk and Solicitor, Greffier Municipal et Avocat Général. Number 1, status update, council inquiries and motions for the period ending February 23rd, 2018. Rapport de situation pour la période le 23 février. Received. Committee reports, rapport de comité, Community and Protective Services Committee, report number 29, rapport numéro 29 du Comité de services communautaires de protection. City of Ottawa responds to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action. Councillor Brockington has a direction to staff. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning. Indeed, at committee last week, the committee received the City of Ottawa response to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action, which is a detailed action plan which was created after significant consultation within the community and a result of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations. In that, we talked about training modules, Indigenous cultural awareness training modules that will be available to municipal staff. And in speaking with both the chair of the committee and staff within the last week, it was agreed with this direction that staff be directed to make the Indigenous cultural awareness training modules available to elected officials in addition to municipal staff. And that is the direction, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so that's a direction to staff. Thank you, Councillor Brockington. Does anyone wish to speak to the report? Maybe if I could just offer a quick comment. With the receipt of this report, Council has approved the adoption of a Council Statement of Reconciliation. This is an important step in continuing the City of Ottawa's and the Indigenous community's joint journey towards reconciliation. Both the Reconciliation Statement and Action Plan align well with a motion that Council will be considering later this morning related to the City's bid to host the 2020 North American Indigenous Games. The Games, which involves 5,000 Indigenous youth, would generate economic and socio-economic benefits through sport competitions and a vibrant cultural program. This initiative will be a direct complement to the Reconciliation Action Plan's focus on culture, employment, education, and awareness building. I'd like to acknowledge the insight, partnership, and support of our community partners in all of this work. Thank Councillor Deans and the members of the Community and Protective Services Committee for their good work, along with our staff, on putting together our action plan. We are looking forward to continuing our journey to reconciliation and implementing these next steps in responding to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action. So on the report, carried. Thank you all very much. Environment and Climate Change Protection Committee, rapport numéro 18 de Comité de l'Environnement et de Protection Climatique. Item number 3, Financial Plan for Water Services 2018, pursuant to Ontario Regulation 453-07, Plan financier concernant les services d'eau 2018. Carried. Planning Committee Report number 58, rapport numéro 58 du Comité de l'Urbanisme, Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-250, Anomaly Report Q1 2018 affecting lands within the general urban area, Règlement de zonage général numéro 2008.250. Carried. Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendment 979 Wellington Street West, modification au plan officiel et au règlement de zonage 979 rue Wellington West. Carried. Planning Committee Report number 59, rapport numéro 59 du Comité de l'Urbanisme, Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendment 355 Cooper Street, modification au plan officiel et au règlement de zonage 355 rue Cooper. Councillor McKenney.
Just very quickly, Mr. Mayor, I just want to recognize the work that went into this and the very good news on this file. This is the Dominion Chalmers Church on Cooper that is being rezoned to allow for post-secondary and institutional use. What will happen here is we're going to see this location turn into a bit of an arts and theater and music hub. Where we'll have the Ottawa Music Chamber Festival, other stakeholders coming together. Carleton University will be moving into this space. It will still be a space for continued space for worship for the community as well. So all in all, it's an excellent news. I want to thank the mayor and his office who worked very hard on this. We've been talking to Carleton for I guess a better part of a couple of years, and as we get closer and just really realizing what we can do with this space in terms of some community space for the ward, specifically for the neighboring community and the city as a whole. It's just all around very good news. So I just wanted to mention that and say thank you.
If I could just offer a thanks also to Councillor McKenney. I know this has been a project near and dear to your heart, and this morning I had the opportunity to see Roseanne O'Reilly-Runte, who was the president of Carleton, who was very much the driving force behind this project. This is a great opportunity to save a beautiful heritage building, a church, and convert it into a multi-use facility, mostly for arts and performances. I see, a number of the local arts groups are very excited about using the sanctuary as their performance hall, which will save them a significant amount of money and allow them to perform in a beautiful and acoustically quite brilliant chamber. So this is a very exciting day, and we know there are many more hurdles to overcome, but certainly the financial support is there from the university, and I thank Carleton as well, and I thank my Chief of Staff, Sir Jarpin, who I know worked with the councillor on this as well. So on the report, carried, merci. Zoning bylaw amendment, 1946 Scott Street, modification règlement de zonage 1946 rue Scott. Carried. Transit Commission report number 17, rapport numéro 17 de la Commission de transport en commun. Item number 8, amendments to transit bylaw for multimodal operations. Carried. Dissent by Councillor Blais and Hubley and Harder and Caudry and Shirelli. Yeas and nays, all right.
Councillor Nussbaum.
Yes.
Conseil Fleury.
Oui.
Councillor Chernyshenko.
Yes.
Councillor El Shantiri.
Yes.
Councillor Tierney.
Yes.
Councillor DeRuse. Councillor Hubley.
No.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Yes.
Councillor Shirelli.
No.
Councillor Leeper.
Yes.
Councillor Harder.
No.
Councillor Moffat.
No.
Councillor Caudry.
No.
Conseil Manette.
No.
Councillor Deans.
Yes.
Councillor Kakish.
Yes.
Conseil Cloutier.
Oui.
Councillor Brockington.
Yes.
Councillor McKenney.
Yes.
Conseil Blais.
No.
Councillor Taylor.
Nope.
Councillor Eglai.
Yes.
Councillor Middick.
Yes.
Mayor Watson.
Yes.
9 nays.
Okay. The bulk consent agenda, we have a couple of items that have been asked to be removed. The first is item number C, naming Saigon Square, dénomination Place Saigon. I know we have some members of the Vietnamese Canadian community here. I had the opportunity to see many of them on the weekend at a Vietnamese New Year's celebration at the McNabb Community Centre. So very good to have you here, and I know Councillor McKenney is very proud of this resolution.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am very pleased to have this report here today to name the plaza that is located at the southwest corner of Preston and Somerset Streets, to have it named Saigon Square. And I do also want to acknowledge the passionate commitment of the Vietnamese community in reaching this significant milestone for the entire community. Specifically, as you mentioned, Mr. Can Lay and other members of the Vietnamese Canadian Centre are here today, and they are making a very generous financial commitment towards the commemoration and the plaque. As most of you know, this is testament to Project 4000, as the City of Ottawa in between 1979 and 80 welcomed a goal of 4,000 Southeast Asian refugees to Ottawa, and our city has never been the same. And specifically, the ward that I represent, we would not have the cultural diversity. We would certainly not have the parks and the schools and well, the many faux restaurants, of course. I can never say enough how important that is to us all. But certainly the downtown is a changed community because of many waves of newcomers, and including the Vietnamese community. So Saigon Square will certainly symbolize the presence of the Vietnamese community in West Centertown and their incredible contributions to the entire city. So I thank you, and I thank the members of the community who are here with us today.
Thank you very much, Councillor McKenney. And just I was mentioning to Councillor Kakish a little while ago, and I mentioned it again when I spoke at the Vietnamese Canadian New Year's celebration, the Year of the Dog, at the McNabb Centre on, I believe, Saturday afternoon, that I was at the Vietnamese community fundraising dinner the year before when they were raising funds for the Syrian refugees. And I thought, what a beautiful story of our country and of Ottawa when the Vietnamese refugees who were welcomed with open arms back in the 1970s were returning the favor of both financial support and love for the Syrian refugees. And I thought that was a great example of what makes our city so special. So it's great to have three leaders from the community with us today. And I thank you for your hospitality, and I thank Councillor McKenney for bringing this proposal forward. On the motion, carried, adopté. Thank you very much. We have another item that's, well, there's one more I have to remove. One other item that we're going to remove from the bulk consent is the commemorative naming proposal, Wendy Stewart Pond, proposition de nom commémorative étang Wendy Stewart. Councillor Brockington, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just very briefly, it's rare that in River Ward we have commemorative namings. We don't do a lot, but today there are two on our agenda for approval. I will speak to one right now, and that is for the Wendy Stewart Pond. Wendy Stewart was a longtime resident of River Ward who's now retired, living with her husband, former Ottawa Rough Rider Ron Stewart, in the Thousand Islands. Ms. Stewart was a three-time elected regional and city councillor for River Ward. She was a long-time volunteer with multiple environmental initiatives, including the chairwoman of the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority. And of all of Ms. Stewart's initiatives that she led while elected, she regards the creation of the Sawmill Creek stormwater ponds as her greatest achievement. So it's fitting that community and supporters had approached me and put forward this application, and we're looking forward to a great official opening later this spring. So I ask my colleagues to support this proposal. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And on the motion, carried, adopté, merci. On the bulk consent agenda as presented, carried. Motion to adopt reports, motion portant adoption de rapport, conseiller Blais, s'il vous plaît. Seconded by, appuyé par conseiller.
That the report from the City Solicitor's Office entitled Status Update, Council Inquiries and Motions for the period ending February 23, 2018, Community and Protective Services Committee Report 29, Environment and Climate Protection Committee Report 18, Planning Committee Report 58 and 59, and the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor's Office entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to the Planning Act Explanation Requirements at the City Council meeting of February 14, 2018 be received and adopted as amended.
On the motion, Carried. Motions of which have been, notices have been previously given. Motion dont avis a été donné entièrement. Councillor Dean, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This motion is to declare International Women's Day, March 8th, in the City of Ottawa. There is no doubt that in the last year or so, a renewed focus on gender issues has emerged. The United Nations theme for Women's Day 2018 is "Time is Now." There really is no doubt that the time is now. Governments, businesses, and communities need to change old behaviors and old ways of doing things. I want to salute the federal government's focus on gender equality in the 2018 budget. I am encouraged by the gender-based analysis approach that was used in building the federal budget, and I am grateful for the serious approach that the federal government is taking on gender-based violence. The feds will also collect data in order to measure results and assess the impact this and future budgets will have on the goal of greater equality. Which brings me to this city and to our local approach to gender issues. I really believe that the time is now for this city, the nation's capital, to make wholesale changes. Internally, we need to ensure that we also apply a gender analysis to our budgeting practices, to our HR and hiring practices, to our training and recruitment practices, to our communication strategies, and yes, to all of our day-to-day functions. I think that the time is now for a special advisor on women's issues at the council level and a women's bureau embedded into our bureaucracy that will begin to update our policies and practices through a gender lens. We also need to put a sharper focus on gender-related issues when it comes to appointments to our boards and commissions. I said last year, and I think it bears repeating, as a city, we need to take action. We need to be leaders, not followers, in our quest for equality. Thursday, March 8th, marks International Women's Day. It is a day to reflect on the impressive gains women have made, but also to acknowledge the need to constantly improve on equal representation and to set a plan for change in motion. That is why, at the end of this council meeting, I will be introducing a notice of motion to do just that. I encourage Council to recognize this day and to celebrate those who continue to strive for equality and excellence for women. Together, we can make a difference. The time is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Wilkinson, did you want to speak as the seconder?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All the discussion about the notice of motion, I'm not a part of at this point. I have not been aware of it before, so I will talk to her about that later. But I do think it's important. Yeah. What?
Well, so McKenney is the seconder on the notice of motion.
I think Councillor Wilkinson is seconding the current motion.
I think that we celebrate where we've come from, because I know when I was first elected, I was the first woman ever elected in that area. I was dealing with men all the time who didn't always understand some of the issues, particularly things like childcare and things. So we've come a really long way. And I think that the latest budget, what it does say is that without the input of women in our labor force and doing all the other things, that Canada is not going to be able to keep up with our productivity and those type of things that are so important to our future. And I mean, I think we've all known for young girls, I've certainly encouraged both my granddaughters are going into engineering, and there are more and more women doing that now, so that it's the kind of thing that we can let them do, encourage them to not just look at traditional types of jobs and things, but to open their minds up to what's available out there in today's economy. So I hope that everybody will support it. There's a lot of activities going on here, including your breakfast and Diane's. I do mine at different days just so I don't overlap, and celebrate what we come from, but also look forward to what we need to do in the future, because it's important. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And you mentioned, just to remind, thanks to members of council able to attend our annual Women's Day breakfast. It's now over 320 people have RSVP'd, so we're going to be tight quarters, but we're welcoming 4 remarkable women, the ambassadors of Germany, France, the United States, and the High Commissioner from the UK. All, for the first time, are female ambassadors in our country. So that's on March 8th, and those who can attend, I'd very much appreciate. And I thank you for suggesting names of women and girls in your communities that have received an invitation. So on the motion, carried. All right. Motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure. Motion exigeant la suspension des règles de procédure. The first one is by Councillor Chernyshenko, seconded by myself, with respect to a federal government program receiving funding for 5 projects in Ottawa, and there's a deadline that has to be met. So on suspension of the rules, carried. Councillor Chernyshenko, if you'd like to introduce the motion, please.
Thank you very much. There are a lot of whereases giving the background to both the funding sources and the existing City of Ottawa commitments. I'll just summarize most of those whereases for you. The increasing urgency of action to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions becomes more and more apparent all the time, as does the cost and anticipated cost of not doing so. The City of Ottawa now has its air quality and climate change management plan, its energy evolution strategy in place, and is committed to targets and to measurements. And thankfully, at both the federal and provincial level, a significant amount of funding is now available for a variety of initiatives in everything from building retrofits to complete streets to active and rapid transit programs. And the City of Ottawa has been diligently applying for as much of that funding as we can, and this motion is essentially a requirement for the provincial funding, particular provincial funding program. So whereas in November 2017, the city submitted applications for multiple projects to receive funding from the Municipal Greenhouse Gas Challenge Fund, and whereas on February 15, 2018, the province advised that the City of Ottawa would receive funding for the Albert and Slater Streets Revitalization Project and 4 energy conservation projects at the following city facilities: 110 Laurier here at City Hall, 100 Malvern Drive, the Walter Baker Sports Centre, 100 Constellation, the Mary Pitt Centre, and 100 Iber Road, the Public Works Yard. And whereas the amount of funding awarded for each project will be announced by the province in April of this year, and whereas the province requires a council resolution authorizing the city to enter into a transfer payment agreement with the province for each individual project and to name authorized representatives for the purposes of these agreements, therefore be it resolved that Council delegate signing authority to the Mayor and the City Clerk and Solicitor to finalize and execute the Municipal GHG Challenge Fund transfer payment agreements between Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario, as represented by the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change, as described in this motion, and be it further resolved that Council designate the General Manager, Parks, Recreation and Facility Services Department, and the General Manager, Transportation Services Department, the delegated authority to verify and attest to the accuracy of claimed costs and all other documents required by the province for each of their respective agreements.
Great, thank you very much. On the motion, carried. Adopté. Merci. The next motion requiring suspension of the rules is moved by myself, seconded by our Sports Commissioner Jody Middick, with respect to bidding on the Indigenous Games, and there's a timeline requirement that we must meet. On suspension, carried. So I'm not going to read the whole thing because I think members of council have that. This is similar to what we did with the Canada Games bid. Obviously, when if we are successful in this bid, the funds would flow, but they wouldn't flow until before 2020. As I mentioned in my comments, this was one of the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that we be involved in these Indigenous Games. I spoke with the Mayor of Toronto, who hosted the Games, I believe, last year, and he said it was a resounding success, a very great opportunity for citizens of Toronto to better understand Indigenous culture and cuisine and art and sport and athleticism. And I'd encourage members to support this. This is one of our bid more, win more, host more strategies that Councillor Middick has been involved with to attract more sporting events, but this one has significant meaning for us. As you know, we have a large Indigenous community who live in our city, live on their land, And we also have the largest Inuit population in southern Canada, in fact, right here in the city of Ottawa. So the recommendations are before you with respect to our bid. As you know, we are Ontario's bid in the national scope, which is great. We've made that stage, and now we are up against, I believe, one other city in Canada. And this motion, I believe, would strengthen our position to bid on the Indigenous Games for 2020. So on the motion, carried. Merci. Thank you. The next motion requiring suspension of the rules is the appointment of the Light Rail Regulatory Monitor and Compliance Officer. You have the information. I don't believe there's a reason to go in camera, but I'd ask the City Clerk to explain why this position is necessary and how we got to the recommendation.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
First, we must suspend the rules. Suspend the rules. Carried? Carried. So, Mr. Clerk, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And members of council may recall that back in September of 2015, as part of the rollout with regards to light rail operations, the City of Ottawa entered into a delegation of authority agreement with Transport Canada that, among a number of other matters, indicated that the city would be responsible for establishing bylaws, regulatory procedures, processes, protocols, and a variety of other matters with regards to the light rail and with regards to public safety there too. In addition, Mr. Mayor, the delegation agreement with Transport Canada required council to appoint a regulatory, we call him a compliance officer, an independent person who would assist with the development of all of those rules and regulations, and then, Mr. Mayor, also begin with the enforcement and ensuring compliance of same. As a result of that, council directed that the hiring panel made up of yourself, Mr. Mayor, as chair, the two deputy mayors, and the chairs of Transit Commission and Transportation Committee to interview various candidates and to provide a preferred candidate, and that is what has been done, Mr. Mayor. So I'm in council's hands. If they move the motion and carry it, we would obviously be contacting both the individual to confirm the appointment and also Transport Canada to share the news with them.
So you have a copy of the individual's resume as well as the contract between the city and the individual to fulfill this obligatory role. And we have a motion from Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Monette, with respect to the appointment. Is there any reason to go in camera? No. So Councillor Taylor, if you'd like to introduce the motion, please.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Whereas City Council on September 23, 2015 approved the establishment of the position of the Light Rail Regulatory Monitor and Compliance Officer for the city's light rail transit system, whose duties include monitoring and reporting on compliance with the Ottawa Light Rail Regulatory Framework. Whereas the report established the hiring panel consisting of Mayor Watson, Deputy Mayors Manette and Taylor, Transit Commission Chair Stephen Blais, and Transportation Committee Chair Keith Egli, which would engage an external firm to establish and implement an independent search process that would identify candidates of high quality. And whereas Linda Navita Consulting Limited, the recruitment consultant, was tasked with undertaking a search for qualified candidates to fulfill this role. And whereas on November 27, 2017, a meeting of the hiring panel was convened to consider the curricula vitae of the candidates who had been shortlisted by the recruitment consultant for consideration by the hiring panel, and whereas the hiring panel conducted interviews for this position on December 11, 2018 and selected a preferred candidate, and whereas the hiring panel directed the recruitment consultant and the city clerk and solicitor to seek to negotiate an employment contract with its preferred candidate, and whereas a negotiated employment contract has been reached subject to council approval, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Ottawa approve the hiring of Mr. Sam Barada as the City of Ottawa's Light Rail Regulatory Monitoring and Compliance Officer and delegate authority to the Mayor and City Clerk and Solicitor to execute the employment contract with Mr. Barada, SAB Vanguard Consulting, Inc. Thank you.
I want to thank members of the selection panel. It was a fairly time-consuming exercise because we interviewed a number of individuals and did our due diligence, so thank you to those members of the committee. On the motion, carried, adopté. Is there any other motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure at this point? Notice is a motion for consideration at subsequent meeting. Avis de motion pour examen à réunion subséquente. Conseiller Fleury, s'il vous plaît, appuyé par conseiller Middick.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. C'est simplement Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's only a motion that's been approved at different occasions concerning the national celebration for physical education and health.
Council declares Saturday, June 2nd, 2018 to be National Health and Fitness Day in Ottawa. And be it further resolved that the City Council approved that the city offer 2-for-1 public swim at all of the 20 city-operated swimming pools and 2-for-1 admission to all 17 city-operated weight and cardio rooms on Saturday, June 2nd, 2018 in recognition of the 2018 National Health and Fitness Day.
Merci. Thank you. We'll deal with that in the next meeting. Councillor Dean says a notice of motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenney. Whereas for decades, organizations and individuals have worked diligently to increase awareness of women's rights and bring the issue of parity to the forefront. And whereas the United Nations has declared that the critical mass necessary for women to make a visible impact on the style and content of political decision-making is 30%. And whereas our federal government in 2015 created the first gender-balanced cabinet and have just released the first federal budget built to recognize the importance of gender equality in our society, whereas other major Canadian cities such as Vancouver have created special committees that bring forward issues of concern and work to ensure gender equality within their policies and initiatives, and whereas currently Ottawa City Council has a female representation of less than 17%. Therefore, be it resolved that Ottawa City Council recommend that the Mayor and City staff look at including the role of a Council representative special liaison for women's issues and a Women's Bureau to provide a gender lens on our policies and practices in the 2019 governance report.
Okay, thank you. We'll deal with that at the next meeting. Are there any other notices of motion? No. Motion to introduce bylaws. Motion portant présentation de règlement. Conseiller Blair, s'il vous plaît.
That the bylaws listed on the agenda under motion to introduce bylaws, 3 readings, be read and passed, and that the rules be waived to permit the listing of a bylaw to adopt an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw respecting 355 Cooper Street.
The motion carried. Confirmation bylaw, please, Councillor Blais.
That the following bylaw be read and passed to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting of February 28, 2018.
Carried. Madam Deputy Clerk, are there any written inquiries? Adjournment. Councillor Blais, seconded by Councillor Nussbaum, please.
That the proceedings of City Council meeting February 28, 2018 be adjourned.
Carried. Adopté. Merci.